Reagan has great quotes, but Reagan, one of my favorite Reagan quotes is that libertarianism is the heart and soul of conservatism. And he said that in 70-something, an interview with Reason magazine. But I've been a registered Republican my entire life. I haven't changed. I think the Republican Party has changed. To the extent that the Republican Party embraces things like No Child Left Behind and Medicare Part D, that's not my Republican Party. And I think there's a very real argument going on within the Republican Party. Are we the party of limited government and individual liberty and economic freedom, or are we the party of the nanny state that's going to tell you how your health care can work and how your kids are going to be educated? The bottom line is that as far as our government in Washington is doing, we are not treating our problems. We have a fiat monetary system, that's the world we live in, and we've allowed debt to get beyond our ability to service. But what's our solution? Our proposed solution is trying to pile on additional debt to bail us out, to bail out the banks, when there is too much debt to begin with. It's trying to cure alcoholism with another drink. Probably the best analogy I could give. So that's kind of what brought me into the political world 2 years ago, was watching the situation unfold and recognizing that for folks in our generation, we're inheriting this. We're inheriting a system that's being pushed to its mathematical limits, and things are going to unfold in a predictable, mathematically determined fashion. Yes?
How do you handle the too big to fail argument, though? Like, what do you do with it?
Great question. So,
I mean, Bush doesn't support these bailouts, but he felt compelled to do so for practical reasons. So, I mean, do you think he made a mistake?
Yes, absolutely.
What would you have done in this?
Because here's the thing. You have to look at most people who look at history, they look within a relatively small time frame. So when people talk about too big to fail and we need to prevent these large institutions which literally probably couldn't collapse without bringing down the entire system, you have to look at the system itself. The system itself is not the system that we've always had throughout our nation's history. The Federal Reserve and the monetary system that we have today, this is our third central bank. We've gone through two prior ones. They haven't worked out very well either. So the alternative to too big to fail is the discipline of capitalism, real free markets, which says that when you take risks in excess of, beyond your ability to control them, yes, failure is an option. Failure must be an option. Because when you start subsidizing failure, you create a condition called moral hazard. And what we've done in our banking and financial system is we have created the worst form of moral hazard, which is basically privatizing the profits. When banks do well, they pay their people 1% of GDP in bonuses, but socializing the losses, which is taken out of the middle class and everybody else who's just trying to get a job after they graduate. So in a very real way, I believe too big to fail is too big to exist. And these institutions that have taken the system to this mathematical extreme, they need to fail. That doesn't mean chaos. And I ask people, what about the Depression of 1920? Did you hear about the Depression of 1920? Oh, no, I don't really know about that one. We think more about the Great Depression in the 30s. Well, there actually was a big credit contraction, because these booms and busts are kind of a symptom of the banking system and the way fractional reserve banking operates. We've had contractions before, and if you don't bail out these institutions, yes, there's short-term pain, but that short-term pain is very quickly followed by a natural organic recovery once debt is reduced to sustainable levels in the economy. So that's a really good question. And the bailouts, they started under Bush, they're continuing under Obama. There's no real change there. It's just this sort of marriage of convenience between a monetary and banking system that enables the federal government and our legislators to make promises that they're in no position to keep. Which means that we're all signed up for $100 trillion in long-term liabilities for Social Security and Medicare. How's that going to work? So, and these are the issues that our generation has to face. Having said that, my platform and the reason I'm running for office is because we need to take our economy back. We need economic growth that starts from the grassroots. That's true capitalism. That is people having the economic freedom to go out and start their own businesses, create their own jobs, to succeed or fail, not based upon how well you pay your lobbyists, but how well you serve your customers. That was my experience starting our software company, Mercury MD. Putting food on my family's table depended on people being willing to voluntarily give me money for doing something for them, for providing valuable service. And if I didn't take care of my customer, we didn't do well. That's what we need. So it means lower taxes. It means a lot less spending. It means fewer regulations. It means a smaller government. And my specific platform is focused on getting people to realize that our federal government has a rule book. In 2008, we gave out 50,000 copies of our Constitution, which ideally is the job description not just for a federal legislator, but for the federal government. And if we can get our federal government to admit that, yes, we do have rules, this is our rule book. We have a Declaration of Independence, it's our philosophical foundation. We have a Constitution that is the contract between the government and the states and the people. Let's start there. Let's try following the rules for a change. And this I cannot stress to y'all enough, okay? Because I learned this the hard way. When you are getting out of school and you've got literally a mortgage coming due with your student loan, the federal government has not been helping us to make education more accessible and more affordable. Just like we let the government do with cheap money and low interest rates and driving up housing prices to unsustainable level, we have let education prices be driven to unsustainable levels because we've let the government come in with cheap money, low interest loans, whatever, which encourages us to take on debt. And I literally saw bad things happen in the hospital because young doctors, fresh out of fellowship, were really, really aggressive in trying to maintain a lifestyle that they believe they deserve because they've been living a life of delayed gratification for 10 years through residency and fellowship. And they had massive bills to pay with their student loans, and they were going to do surgeries that older surgeons wouldn't touch because of the risk of the patient. But they were driven to service the debt. We've got to figure out how to manage the cost of education, not just make it easy to finance. Yeah, I think the Republican Party is founded on the right ideals. The Republican Party platform, for the most part, is the right platform. It's about the Constitution. It's about individual liberty. It's about economic freedom. It's about limited government. But the past few Republican administrations in my lifetime haven't done anything to shrink government. All we've done is grow it. So you kind of, like Jeff said, RLC, we're the Republican Party. We believe in these things, but we mean it. That's the thing that I think is driving people to think, all right, what does it mean to be a Republican? And frankly, you can't win. And my goal is to win the election in November. It's not just to win the primaries, to win the election in November. And in the 4th District of North Carolina, we Republicans are still 26% of the electorate. Unaffiliated are 24%, and Democrats are roughly 50%. Now, the turnout in 2010 is going to be a lot different than the turnout in 2008. I'm optimistic about that. But I know that winning the Republican primary is by only going after people who want the caricature of the Republican candidate. It's not being honest with myself. It's not who I am. It's not why I'm running. And it's not going to get me elected in November. So I've got to be honest. I've got to be straight up. I've got to tell it like I see it. And hope that the voters understand that, no, I'm just trying to talk about the issues. And I'm not trying to recite talking points that are handed down from somebody who might be pushing their own agenda.